Here we go, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. It's the Top 5 Tuesday edition of the show, and so glad that you guys are with us here on this cold, overcast, kind of dreary Tuesday, but we're delighted that you have joined us just the same here. Good afternoon, folks. Wade Neely saying hello alongside our right-hand man, David Wilson, and our producer behind the scenes is the one and only Mark Rogers. David, good afternoon. How we doing?
I'm doing well. It's really cold here in Nashville in the mid-state overall. We were, expecting at least a few days ago maybe some flurries in the area today. That did not come to be. So the roads are nice and clear, but that doesn't remiss the cold from and the wind chill from breezing through the mid-state. So I am hunkered indoors for now. We'll venture out a little later for some basketball down in Brentwood for Green Hill and the Bruins tangling together tonight. But I'm gonna enjoy the heater next to me while I can.
Yeah, savor the flavor and savor the heat flames as they come in. But luckily, basketball a little smart. They play those things indoors, so you're covered there. And you're right, David. I feel a little slighted because I stayed up pretty late last night, and man, the rain was coming down, and I was just waiting for that magical moment, where the rain turns into flurries and then hopefully into snow. Never came, and so did one more check on Nashville severe weather socials, and once I saw it was not going to be, I finally packed it in. I felt a little slighted though when I woke up this morning. There was no snow on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about this before the show started. It's been a minute since I've been on here. Obviously, we took the last couple days before Thanksgiving off, yes, or last week rather. So there was no show on Wednesday and no show obviously on Thursday. So it's been a minute since I've been on here, and I feel like the weather has drastically changed since then. I feel like the last time I was on, you could still walk around with maybe some shorts on or just a light jacket. But that changed last Friday when I was on the sidelines down in Murfreesboro for the Class 6A semifinal between Blackman and Oakland. It was absolutely miserably cold, and it's been cold ever since. So this is not my favorite time of the year. This is the time of year where I complain and I moan. So hopefully some warm weather will be on the horizon here before you know it.
Yeah, hopefully so. But buckle up. We may be getting some payback for a relatively mild fall, but we'll see. That's a weather update from David and myself. It's time for a sports update. We got a big show lined up today, folks. Coming up in our second hour, we'll be rejoined by our good friend. Feels like it's been. You mentioned it's been a while, David. It's been a while, at least since I've had the pleasure of chatting with our good friend, the Blue Raider voice, Chip Walters at Choose Chip on your socials there. So excited to catch up with Chip. MTSU football closing the regular season on, a little bit of a positive note, some momentum down the stretch, dare I say. But Chip has also got some updates, not only from the hardwood with the Blue Raiders, but some updates from the beach. And we'll talk more about that with our good friend and Hall of Famer Chip Walters again in that second hour. Also in the second hour, we'll get into the grab bag. We'll talk a little Monday Night Football as the Patriots put a beat down on the New York Football Giants last night. Got some other odds and ends, including one story in the grab bag that maybe qualifies for Wild and Wacky Wednesday, but it is a sports story, so we'll get into it. So trust me, you're not going to want to miss that coming up in that second hour. And, well, it's a little bit of a music story, so we'll tease that there. And because it's kind of a music story, David, we're going to remix Top 5 Tuesday just a little bit. We got nine outstanding high school football games coming up here a little bit later this week. The BLUECROSS Bowl action kicking up toward the tail end of the week. You're going to be on hand for most, if not all of those. And so as such, we're going to remix Top 5 Tuesday. We're going to rank the matchups that we're most excited about coming up in our final segment. We got 9 to choose from, and we are looking forward to each and every single one of them. But we'll go through those as kind of a farewell before David ventures into enemy territory down there in Chattanooga. That's in the second hour. Real quickly, in the first hour, we talked a lot about Lane Kiffin. We talked a lot about college football yesterday, but we didn't even really scratch the surface on a lot of stories. So to kind of help tidy things up, our good friend John Bryce from Football Scoop will drop by. We will talk Lane Kiffin a little bit. Might as well. It is the season after all. We'll also talk about the college football rankings and how they may look this evening. Some other coaching carousel odds and ends. Always good stuff with our good friend John Bryce of Football Scoop. And David mentioned basketball earlier. We got some big college basketball action cranking up both tonight and tomorrow night in the ACC, SEC men and women's challenges. We'll get you up to speed on all of that. And David, that is all said, and that is all prepped. We ain't even scratched the surface though on the top story that we're going to get into here in just a little bit. And that's one that you've been monitoring closely, not just today, but for a couple of weeks now. So it's interesting and kind of neat that you're on the show today when the news kind of finally breaks. So we got a top story that you're not going to want to miss. And I'm just excited to be with David here on this Tuesday. It's cold, it's dreary, it's ugly, but hey, we're inside. Let's have fun for 2 hours, partner.
I will, and I'm gonna say it. I said it off air. That red Christmas tree in the background. Red's my favorite color, although I'm not an Ohio State guy. But you're paying your dues, you're paying your bets, and so I like it.
Yeah,
You're a man of your word.
I'm a man of my word, and I put it up yesterday. Shout out to Chris Bazin, former colleague of ours at the Tennessee Titans. He's now over in Charlotte helping out with some NBA digital creative stuff there. But yeah, paying the bets, and I don't know, it's kind of growing on me a little bit. The wife hates it just kind of as much as I initially did, but maybe by the end of Christmas season, we'll come to love it. So shout out to the red tree. It's here. It'll be here for the next little bit. But we hope that you guys will be with us for the next little bit. We're excited that we've set the table for the next couple of hours. We've introduced David. We've talked about producer Mark. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, to get this party started on a little thing we like to call the rundown.
This is the Rundown.
Kicking things off on your top 5 Tuesday rundown. Some girls basketball action across the TSSAA last night. Battle Creek picked up a 65-30 win over Mount Pleasant. It was Cornersville defeating Culleoka 50-30. It was Community defeating Eagleville 48-42. In a battle of mid-state programs is Lipscomb Academy and Coach Becky Starks picking up a 53-50 win over Nashville Christian. It was Moore County defeating Santa Fe 76-17. It was Giles County over Spring Hill 66-35. It was Watertown under Coach Brianna Price picking up a 60-29 win over Monterey. It was Wilson Central staying undefeated on its season ahead of a matchup on Friday against Antioch. They went up to Robertson County and defeated Greenbrier 69-40. In boys basketball action on the TSSAA circuit, Mount Pleasant defeating Battle Creek 76-41. It was Cornersville 55, Culleoka 49. It was Eagle 61, Community 33. It was James Lawson defeating Martin Luther King 82-47. Just the boys basketball score there. It was Zion Christian defeating Lighthouse Christian, in Antioch 60-54. It was Lipscomb Academy and the boys doubleheader, picking up a 65-45 win over Nashville Christian. It was Santa Fe 40, Moore County 37. It was Giles County defeating Spring Hill 65-58. It was Watertown picking up the doubleheader sweep 57-32 over Monterey to move to 4-2 on their season. And Wilson Central also completed the sweep over Greenbrier up in Robertson County. It was 53-44 the final score at the Briar Patch.
Some good games last night in girls and boys action in TSSAA ranks. Women's college basketball last night. We got one score to update you on, and it was close-ish, but it was Tennessee Tech defeating Lipscomb last night, 68-55. More on this game later as MTSU's men defeat UAB 76-61. We touched on the New England Patriots and their big victory last night on Monday Night Football, defeating the Giants. That final was 33-15. To the basketball schedule we go for tonight, and we've got TSSAA action cranking up a double header for all of these games. Times will be announced, including one that I show listed as at 2 p.m. Franklin Independence may be getting it on at 2 o'clock today, but double check your start time there. But that is a lone 2 p.m. start time on our schedule this afternoon. Other games, 6 o'clock starts for Blackman at Beach. Green Hill is on the road at Brentwood. Houston County traveling to Camden Central. It'll be Montgomery Central visiting Cheatham County. Mount Pleasant will be at Community. Sycamore at Creekwood. Maplewood is visiting Eazell Harding. Hickman County's on the road tonight at Fairview. Giles County will visit Fayetteville at 6. Also at 6 p.m. tonight, Culleoka at Huntland. Doubleheaders for Mount Juliet at John Overton. Clarksville Academy at Kenwood. Smyrna on the road at Lead Academy this evening. Pope John Paul II is at Laverne. Lawrence County traveling to Lewis County. Kirkwood is visiting Liberty Creek. Columbia and Marshall County will tangle in Lewisburg tonight at 6 o'clock. And Wilson Central will be at McGavock.
If you want to stay tuned to my socials this evening, I will be on site at Brentwood as Green Hill makes the trip. The road weary Hawks, who have yet to have a home game this season as we enter the month of December, make the trip down to Williamson County. So stay
Yeah.
tuned for my social media on that one. Continuing the lengthy slate tonight, across the LSLA, Franklin Christian at Middle Tennessee Christian. That is a 6 p.m. tip on the doubleheader. Battle Creek at Murfreesboro Central Magnet. Nolensville at Page. Sumner Town at Perry County. Hendersonville taking on Sumner County rival Portland at 6 o'clock. Franklin Road Academy at Providence Christian. Loretto at Richland. Ravenwood making the trip over to Rutherford County to take on Riverdale at Centennial at Siegel. Gallatin at Springfield in a rivalry matchup right there. McGavick at Station Camp. Cookville at Stewart's Creek. CPA at Summit. Harpeth at the University School of Nashville, and Livingston Academy at Watertown. All those are 6 p.m. doubleheaders. This game to follow at 7:30. Girls basketball action in a lone girls slate tonight. It is Good Pasture making the trip over to the west end of Nashville to take on Harpeth Hall. That is a 5:30 tip off. It's St. Cecilia Academy making the trip down to Maury County to take on Columbia Academy. That is a 6 p.m. girls only tip right there as well. It's Westmoreland at Friendship Christian, 6 o'clock on the girls tip out in Wilson County. Father Ryan at Hillsboro, also 6 p.m. tip, and Brentwood Academy's girls taking on Whites Creek, 6 o'clock p.m. tip there as well. Boys basketball action, Agos Classical at Hampshire, 6 o'clock. Merrill Hyde at Pleasant View Christian, also a 6 o'clock tip off. It's Tennessee Heat at Columbia Academy at 7:30. Clarksville at Dixon County, 7:30 p.m. as well. Zion Christian at Franklin Classical, 7:30 for the boys tip. And Oakland at Upperman in Baxter, 7:30 p.m. tip on the boys side. Tonight in men's basketball action, we mentioned as Wade talked about the ACC SEC Challenge on the men's slate. That is underway this evening as Tennessee makes the trip up to New York to take on the Syracuse Orange, 6 p.m. tip-off on ESPN2. Tonight in the NHL down at Bridgestone Arena, 7 p.m. puck drop between the Calgary Flames and the host Nashville Predators. You can find that one on FanDuel South on your tube. And tonight in the association, it's Wade's Memphis Grizzlies taking on my San Antonio Spurs, 7 p.m. tip there. You can find that one on FanDuel Southeast, I believe, as well. Ladies and gentlemen, those are your scores. That was your lengthy schedule, and that concludes today's rundown.
Thank you, David, for bringing us home there on the rundown. That moves us right into our top story, which is brought to you each and every single afternoon by our friends at Piggly Wiggly at Neely's Mill in Columbia. They're open from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m., so be sure and check them out for your delicious daily deli lunch options, where they also offer hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Once again, it's Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia, presenting today's top story. We teased it a moment ago. If you have not heard the news by now, let us welcome you into the party, because Vanderbilt, Jared Curtis, Georgia, all involved. And David, something that's been in the water and kind of bubbling, as I mentioned earlier. You've been keeping tabs on this for a couple of weeks, and today we get some news. It seems as if five-star quarterback, Nashville Christian School standout Jared Curtis is going to decommit from Georgia and, hold on to your hats, commit to the Vanderbilt Commodores.
Yeah, Wade, this feels like this is something that has been looming for quite a while. We remember the week that Vanderbilt hosted College Game Day when they faced Missouri a couple months ago. Jared Curtis obviously made a visit to campus that weekend, attended a practice earlier that week as well. And it just feels like there's been rumblings, obviously with coming with Clark Lee and Vanderbilt's success, obviously a 10-2 season just off the heels of a big win over Tennessee up in Knoxville, where they absolutely, kind of spanked them in the second half. There's been some momentum here, just hearing some things that Jared Curtis camp, whether, them talking to rivals or on 3 Sports about Jared's want to start right away as a freshman in college, or have the opportunity to be a starter right away, if that makes sense. So this has been a logical point. Obviously, Diego Pavia has been in the mix as well. He went to attend a game earlier this fall at Nashville Christian, and obviously he has a relationship of some kind with Jared Curtis as well. So It feels going into signing day tomorrow, where Jared Curtis is set to put pen to paper, that the Commodores are now the favorite to land his services. Obviously, he is the number one quarterback in the country at the high school level for the senior class of 2026, according to Rivals. So it'd be a very good get, obviously, for Vanderbilt and head coach Clark Lee. And just wait, imagine if we went back in the time machine 5 years ago. If somebody would have told you that Vanderbilt would be on the outside looking in and have a reasonable case to make the college football playoff and to have the opportunity to flip the number one quarterback in the country from Georgia, somebody would have told you that you were crazy. But that's the world that we live in now. And with the NIL and everything that's happening in the transfer portal, this is the landscape of college football now. And so Vanderbilt, if they have an opportunity to get Jared Curtis on campus with his talent, you think that they can make some noise for the next couple of years to come.
Absolutely. And everything you just said, yeah, it's bizarro world, right? Everything about this story seems backwards to what we're traditionally used to thinking about Vanderbilt, about Georgia, perhaps, about recruiting in general. Everything about it just seems kind of Seinfeld's status, right? It's opposite day here. We're not, where Costanza's doing everything the opposite, and it's coming up snake eyes. It's coming up lucky in that sense. So this is a really fascinating story. Now, we will go ahead and preface this. Virtually every outlet on the planet is reporting this by now. But take this for what it's worth. As David pointed out in our group text earlier today, Jared Curtis himself did turn to social media and did drop a tweet that says, quote, "Don't know where all this is coming from. Haven't had a chance to talk to either school yet. I'll keep y'all posted." So take that for what it's worth. But again, virtually every outlet on the planet reporting this. Tom Loy of 24/7, one of the first on the scene to kind of break this. 6'4", 225-pound quarterback. He's been committed to Georgia again. Remember, he decommitted at one point in his recruiting process, but only to recommit. But has been committed once again since May 5th. But now, all of a sudden, to David's point a minute ago, seems like the smoke was billowing and seems like it eventually has kind of bubbled over. And this is the crazy part to me of this whole story, David. He's going to be the highest signee if it plays out this way, like we think it will at this point, in Vanderbilt's history. He certainly will be, the biggest recruit in quarterback status ever to step foot on campus. And to me, I've been a skeptic in a sense of Vanderbilt over the last year and a half. They have proven me wrong, and I've been pleasantly surprised in the fact that how they've proven me wrong. And it's been fun to watch them prove me wrong along the way. But it felt like, hey, all right, well, the music kind of ends when Pavia leaves, right? It's kind of how it initially felt to me. And then in one fell swoop, we kind of see, hey, not only is Clark Lee coming back, not only has Vanderbilt got a replacement, Vanderbilt football, this really doesn't feel like a flash in the pan suddenly anymore, David.
Yeah, I mean, Clark Lee has done a phenomenal job what he's done over the last couple of years on the recruiting trail, on the football field as well. You think about just last week, FRA's Amari Sanders committed to Vanderbilt, who is a high 4-star recruit locally at Franklin Road Academy. He was going to be the highest rated recruit in Vanderbilt history, according to 247's rankings. And now Jared Curtis, a week later, jumps him. So Clark Lee has been very hot on the recruiting trail, and it means a lot. Obviously, we live in the state of Tennessee, so a lot of these kids grow up thinking about potential stadium and running into the checkerboards. And so for Vanderbilt to keep some of this homegrown talent in the Nashville area home, and build a fence around Nashville's out their recruiting ranks. When you think about how big the mid-state is getting and how talented, I mean, you see it night after night on the Friday nights, Wade, how talented the high school football is in the mid-state. To keep some of these kids home is really big for Vanderbilt. And, anytime you can flip someone from going to Georgia, who's a perennial national championship contender. Heck, they're playing the SEC championship this weekend down at the Dome. Or at the Benz, excuse me. But this would be a big time get for Vanderbilt, and it ushers in straight from the Diego Pavia area. You look like you have the heir apparent and quarterback with Jared Curtis, who has all the talent and the ability to be a Heisman Trophy kind of player as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. I don't know the thought process behind this, and we'll have more on this obviously on tomorrow's show as well. But Diego Pavia is all but a lock to receive that Heisman Trophy invite, if not maybe contend for winning the awards. And you wonder if Jared Curtis says, okay, that was the one piece of the puzzle that I didn't know about Vanderbilt was could I maybe win a Heisman if that's a goal he has in mind, right? And now all of a sudden we do have that answer because you can go, way down on the list in a weird parallel world now. Way down on the list, you're going to get a great education. But now we see you're going to play at a premier SEC program. You're going to have a chance to improve your NFL stock, and you're also going to have a chance to maybe contend for a Heisman Trophy. So big recruiting news right here in our backyard. And again, we'll have much more on that, not only on tomorrow's show, but as the week continues. When we come back, we'll dip our toes more into college football waters. And man, oh man, there's only one guy for the job to talk and break things down. Our good friend, John Brice, will pop by as we talk coaching carousel. We talk a little college football. We talk everything with our good friend from FootballScoop.com. That's on the other side of this timeout. Brought to you by TOA of Columbia. This is Main Street Sports Today.
Closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs. Winning just got closer.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3-3.
Bee, oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
I'm ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Boys and girls, here on our opening hour of Main Street Sports Today, presented each and every single afternoon by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely here, David Wilson there. Our producer is the one and only Mark Rogers. Our next guest is our good friend, and I cannot wait to hear what John Brice from Football Scoop has got to say, because we've reached the end of the regular season. Now we've entered the beginning of silly season. And so who better than to bring in our good friend, again, from FootballScoop.com, the one and only John Brice. John, good afternoon. How we doing?
I appreciate the kind introduction, Wade, and always good to join you boys.
I thank you and appreciate you being here. I did not mean to insinuate in any capacity you and silly season. There was no connotation between you and those terms, merely that you cover the time of the year that is considered the silly season, right?
Yeah, that's right. But you can call me silly. I've been called worse. Trust me.
Okay, well, I'll remember that for a rainy day, I suppose. But for now, it's brighter and better days. And John, I got to ask you, first of all, how was your weekend? How much of your weekend was dedicated to covering games on the field, and how much was covering events transpiring behind the scenes?
Yeah, the great majority was everything going on away from the field, and that started even some on Thanksgiving Day when we broke the news that Austin P was locking up Jeff Ferris with a new 5-year deal and making a bunch of new financial commitments to him, his staff, and most importantly to player salary, player compensation, revenue sharing. So holiday in name only, but I'm super fortunate. So you just grind on and figure out maybe we'll get a little bit of a break towards Christmas.
You'll try and get it on the back end. And John, obviously, the big news was the Lane Kiffin drama. And, we had our good friend Jim Derry from the Datitude podcast based out of New Orleans on the show yesterday. Kind of got the LSU perspective. Just give me your initial thoughts. There was no easy and no real simple way. There never could be, I guess, with Lane Kiffin involved as he does depart officially from Ole Miss to LSU.
Yeah, this certainly should be a future 30 for 30, as much because of how adamant Florida people were. Even on Thanksgiving Day, I was getting texts saying like, the Gators are going to get him, and on into Friday. And I kept saying that's not what I hear, but I was talking to people in Florida and trying to keep an open mind, and talking to other media and talking to Gator alums and business owners, and so this one was just really bizarre, and it played out so publicly because of the airplane trips from Layla Kiffin and the rest of the family to Gainesville and to Baton Rouge, and because of how long it dragged out, and because of the nature of the coaching calendar right now, when these schools made these moves so much earlier than usual, it meant Lane Kiffin was the belle of the ball for that much longer than usual. So I think that's kind of the way that I assess it.
Real quick, John, I want to ask you, since you mentioned, how did it go down? Because, it seemed like Florida was just in the blink of an eye out of the picture. And we talked on the show yesterday, man, Elaine feels like the spiritual successor to Steve Spurrier. To me, that felt like the perfect fit. How did it fall apart from Gainesville's status?
Yeah, I think honestly, even though they were doggedly confident, I heard that the trip for Layla Kiffin did not go well at all. That the families didn't particularly enjoy that trip. I think there were some initial disagreements as well. I was told that um, on the front end of their conversations that Scott Strickland wanted to maybe say the next coach should keep Nick Polk as general manager, and kind of wanted to just have the coach completely run the football program from that standpoint, but still wanted Nick Polk to take more of the GM approach and have it be much more of the NFL structure. And most college coaches are just not ready to sign off on that, especially if they're in a currently very good situation. So I think it was those things. But I heard from an NFL source and another source with direct connection to the University of Florida that the Sunday family visit did not go well. So that was a blow against the Gators. And then there were some loggerheads on some of the other negotiating points. So I felt for a couple of weeks that Florida was out of it. And then early last week, I had someone at Ole Miss tell me, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but it ain't going to bleep and be Florida. And so I felt that way then. I tried to tell some folks in Gainesville that, and again, they maintained their confidence. They were still talking. They were talking to John Summerall, or attempting to, the week before Thanksgiving, but they maintained hope, I think, until the Wednesday or Thursday before Thanksgiving, and that's when the administration ratcheted up its switch to John Summerall as top priority.
Hey, John, kind of continuing on this Ole Miss theme. Obviously, they lose their head coach now and their offensive coordinator who made their way down to Baton Rouge. How do you feel like the committee, especially tonight and on Sunday when the final rankings come out, will view Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin out the door and Charlie Weiss as well?
Yeah, and I shared on a podcast that I guested on this morning for Irish Illustrated on the 247 Sports Network. I shared that I thought Charlie Weiss was going to be allowed to return as play caller for the duration of Ole Miss's playoff run. I see now that Matt Hayes at USA Today has reported that Charlie Weiss will return as play caller. So that's one less, I guess, negative point for Ole Miss in the eyes of the committee. But as you guys know, I got to do the mock committee earlier this fall. One of the most informative and frankly coolest things I've gotten to do from a professional development standpoint. I do think that Ole Miss will be dinged for being without its head coach. Does that mean Ole Miss drops from 7-8, 7-9? I'm not entirely sure, but I know it will be discussed at length in the room. I think that it should result in Ole Miss being dropped at least one spot because as much as I like Pete Golding and I'm excited to see what he can do with that program in the future, he's never coached a game. He's never been a head coach, and he's getting ready to be the head coach literally in the biggest game in the history of Ole Miss football in any of our lifetimes. I had somebody at Ole Miss tell me that.
John, you still there? We lost you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Lost you briefly there, brother. You were saying had an old timer that was checking on you.
No, I had an Ole Miss friend tell me that they were walking through the football facility and had about 8 trophies in the facility, and the important one was maybe 80 years old. So again, this is the biggest game in Ole Miss football history in any of our lifetimes, and probably in any of the lifetimes of your listeners today, unless you appeal really to the old timer crowd. So I think that's significant. I think the committee has to ding Ole Miss at least a spot for that. I really do. And that's not me advocating that the players be punished. I don't think there's a scenario in the world where Ole Miss should be left out of the playoffs, but I do think you cannot ignore Ole Miss not having its head coach that got it to this point for the playoffs.
And John, moreover, with this conversation when it comes to the college football playoff rankings, we'll see what they do tonight. There's been a lot of conversation across the national landscape about Miami and versus Notre Dame, whether BYU can potentially sneak its way into the rankings. Where do you rank Alabama if they potentially lose to Georgia this weekend in the Bend? So, what is kind of your overall thoughts, at least on the back half of that college football playoff rankings? There's a lot of cluster there with a lot of similarly ranked and clustered teams. So, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that this one's really tough because I'm a big believer in head to head. And obviously that's coming into play with Notre Dame and Miami, but it's also coming into play, frankly, with Ole Miss and Oklahoma because Ole Miss won that game on the field. But again, Ole Miss had Lane Kiffin when it won that game at Oklahoma. And so, like, my first inclination is that I think Oklahoma and Notre Dame should move up to a spot apiece, and that you slot Ole Miss behind them just in front of Alabama. I also very strongly believe that Miami should jump BYU. I think I actually got to go to the BYU game this past weekend and saw them in person, and they fell behind a really terrible Central Florida team, 14-0, and then it might have been 21-7. And then they ended up pulling away in the second half, but they really struggled with a very, very mediocre UCF team. So I just think that having watched the entire season and seen Miami in person now and seen Notre Dame in person and BYU in person and so on, that Miami deserves to be ranked ahead of BYU. But that's kind of how I see it. I think if Alabama loses by double digits to the Georgia Bulldogs Saturday there in Mercedes-Benz, that Alabama will have a hard time making the playoff because that would be a double-digit loss, and then they have the worst loss really of any of those teams right now in contention. And I know it was different then. Florida State was different then. That's the same thing they're saying about the Notre Dame team that Miami beat to open the season, but that doesn't mean you throw it out with the bathwater.
Absolutely. And John, that ultimately, leads to a school near and dear to our coverage area here. What in the world, where in the world is Vanderbilt? Are they just stuck, or is there a scenario? What crazy scenario would need to pan out in your mind, if one exists, for Vanderbilt after such a great season to get in the playoffs?
Yeah, I just don't know that that Vanderbilt can climb up enough. Hopefully, what this does, especially since the powers that be pushed the deadline back until January when it was going to be this weekend or this week, actually tonight, since they pushed the deadline back to make modifications for 2026, Vanderbilt or a couple of these other teams right now, but hopefully, what the Shield and all the bubble teams do is force the playoff to go to 16. I'm not an advocate right now for more than 16. I think there's a huge difference overall between, like, if you expanded to 24, I don't think 17 through 24 would be realistic contenders, but I think this year especially, almost anybody in that top 16 can beat almost anybody in that top 16. I'm still not convinced that Ohio State is infallible, and certainly Indiana had a couple of really notable struggles against nice teams, but not great teams, being especially Penn State late in the year, and then Iowa on the road, a game that frankly the Hoosiers should have lost if Iowa hadn't missed a shorter field goal than what it had already kicked earlier in the game. So I think I don't see a pathway for Vanderbilt. I really don't, because Notre Dame doesn't play, because Miami is up there and looking so good, and just because Oklahoma doesn't play, its resume is done. Ole Miss doesn't play, its resume is done. Oregon doesn't play, so on. So I just think that Vanderbilt will probably out the best bowl of any team not in the playoffs.
Man, and it makes it tough because you just described a scenario. We're talking the most historic season, since the 15 season for Vanderbilt. Heisman candidate, everything kind of breaks their way. And even in a quote unquote mediocre overall term, I guess, for college football this year, they still can't bust through. It does bring a tear to your eye, whether you're a fan of the Commodores or not, because it feels like maybe they should get in there, but does not. I kind of agree with you. I don't really see a true path. John, before we get you out of here, a couple other odds and ends we do want to sweep up with coaching. What can you tell us about Will Stein, and what's he going to bring back to Kentucky? Can he kind of maybe restore some mojo for a team that had kind of fizzled in the last couple of years, it seemed?
Yeah, I think Will Stein will bring a real aggressive offense that Kentucky hasn't had probably since the Hal Mommy days, and that was a little too aggressive because they didn't play any defense way back then. And I don't think Will Stein will do that. I think Will Stein is a great offensive mind who probably has grown leaps and bounds as a coach in general because of his time with Dan Lanning in recent years. I also think he'll bring a much needed more aggressive recruiting approach. I don't think that Kentucky has, I don't think Kentucky's head coach led by example on the recruiting trail in recent years based on the people I've talked to within the University of Kentucky program. Then when they lost Vince Marrow in the middle of summer to Louisville, that was certainly a real condemnation for the direction of Mark Stoops' program. Marrow had been his longest tenured chief lieutenant, his highest paid assistant coach, really. And he bolted, not just bolted, but bolted for rival Louisville and took a general manager job, not an on the field coaching job. So I think Will Stein will bring great, loved in the Bluegrass State, especially in Louisville. Kentucky needs, especially having lost Marrow. Not that Louisville is a hotbed, the likes of Nashville or Atlanta or Birmingham or some of those, but they still get talent. And if you're Kentucky, you still got to get dudes out of there. So I really like the hire. I really give Kentucky a lot of credit. It's a better hire probably than I thought they would make when this sort of unfolded so late in the game. But Kentucky and Virginia Tech right now have a couple of hires that I think are really strong for those respective programs.
Talking with our good friend John Brice of FootballScoop.com, and kind of one other one that I wanted to ask you in particular, John. Man, Bob Chesney felt like there was so much momentum, and it seemed like a surefire lock for a school not named UCLA, but all of a sudden now it seems like he is going to be the guy out in Pasadena. What can you tell us about kind of how that came together?
Yeah, they targeted him for a long time and sent him an offer. My understanding is he's had an offer in his possession or with his agency for at least 10 days. And he sort of took his time to make sure he wasn't going to inch up the board at Penn State. He spoke with the Nittany Lions a couple of different times, I was told, by people that I trust. I think he would have been a really good hire for Penn State. He's a Pennsylvania native, but I'm a Bob Chesney believer. So kudos to him for having the guts to take on the UCLA job, because that place has been a dysfunctional mess. And I would be stunned if Bob Chesney has the same AD by the end of his first football season at UCLA as the guy who's hiring him right now.
So you put it low in the sense, real quick, and then I'll turn it over to David here. We're not looking at a Kurt Cignetti 2.0 in your mind necessarily at UCLA, even though I value Chesney as well, but it seems like maybe that's too far of a reach in your mind.
Well, I don't know that UCLA has committed the financial resources to allow him to be
There we go.
Signetti 2.0. I know he's followed Signetti to James Madison, and then following the move of Signetti from a really good G5 program to a languishing power conference program. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. We'll see if UCLA, they've talked all those things. They've told candidates that we're going to give more money for assistant coaches' salaries than we ever have, and we're doubling down our commitment to rev share and NIL. We'll see if that follows through. Chesney's got swagger. He's got a great self-belief. He has won at every level, and he's never had good resources. So as far behind as UCLA is, this will be the job with the most resources he's ever had.
John, I'm glad you mentioned the state of affairs up in State College with Penn State. They were, I guess, one of the initial schools to the coaching carousel, and we're on the eve of National Signing Day in the week, and they have yet to commit to a head coach for their future. I believe they only have 5 commits in their high school class for the 2026 group. So what do you make of the state of affairs up in State College with the Nittany Lions?
Yeah, we were kind of on the front edge yesterday of the reporting that noted it was really real between Penn State and Kalani Sitake, and that the talks were very deep and advanced. And then ESPN and On3 and some others followed up our reporting later in the afternoon. And Kalani Sitake continues to be the primary focus of that search. We just had a new story go up again this afternoon that sheds some more insight into why Penn State has so prioritized Sitake as this search has gone on. Obviously, he's never coached on this side of the country. He's never Big Ten. He played in Cincinnati as a pro for a bit, but that's about his extent of existence on this side of the country. But Kalani Sitake builds a great culture. He's a leader of men. He gets his teams to perform very well. He's never had the most talent, but he's on the cusp of the playoffs. He's won a game at Neyland Stadium. He's had a first-round draft pick at quarterback. He's done a lot of good things. So Penn State believes that what Kalani has done, again, without all the best resources, but good resources, let me make that clear, that at Penn State, he could take things in his career and that program to an entirely different level. If they don't get the deal closed, then if it's Brian Hartline, I don't know if it's Jeff Brom. I don't know if it's Brian Daboll. I'm not sure where they go. There's a lot of pressure on Pat Kraft and Penn State right now, because you're right. They weren't the one of the first 3, but they were early on because they fired James Franklin literally at the midpoint of the season after a 3-3 start.
John Brice, our good friend of Football Scoop. John, what else did we miss? There will obviously be more moves along the way. And I guess what will this weekend look like for you? Do you shift back into a little more football coverage, or are you still working the carousel beat for the next, forever, basically?
Yeah, no, there will still be a lot of carousel coverage, because after signing day comes and goes, that's when more and more assistants either find new jobs or find out they're out of jobs. And there's still Coastal Carolina still needs a head coach. USF is seen as a prized group of 5, group of 6 job. Tulane, we've got a good update on the Tulane search on the site today. That's a free read. So there's still a lot going on. I'll certainly try to carve out time to watch as much of the championship games on Saturday as I can, but I will do so both with my phone and a portable charger and a laptop right beside me.
I love that. You're a man that's committed. And John, I also give you a tip of the cap for not pointing out my bright red, scarlet and gray Christmas tree as a result of the Buckeyes beating my Wolverines this weekend. So you're a man of honor for not bringing that up. Thank you.
Well, I noticed it, and the fact that I'm not on video is the only reason I didn't ask a question. But I love a good bet. I'm sorry that you lost yours.
That's okay. And, there's, hey, real quick, the Sharon Moore, man, there was I think it was Michigan message board chatter, but I guess the question would be, he's not on the hot seat now, but, are we potentially maybe having a Sharon Moore discussion in your mind this time next year?
Absolutely. The way it was put to me this fall was Sharon Moore was always hired to be fired for just a bunch of different reasons. And I would say, Wade, especially knowing your Michigan fandom, keep your head on a swivel, because I think there are assistant coaching changes coming there potentially as early as tonight.
Okay, I smell what you're stepping in, and you've mentioned the old Winkster a time or two on this show. So if that's the one you're referring to, I will definitely keep my eyes peeled. John, thank you as always for your time, brother. Get some rest over the next little bit. Eat a leftover turkey sandwich for me and David, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, boys. Have a great week.
Thank you, John. John Bryce of FootballScoop.com, bringing the goods. And, man, a lot to update us on. David, I go to Football Scoop, especially on Tuesdays, when I'm filling out to run a show. You could basically craft an entire run of show on FootballScoop.com with NFL and D1, but then they go beyond D2, D3. Some of our wild and wacky Wednesday stories have come from the site because they kind of cover it all. And it's always good when we have John on, and he spoke to it. The culture at Vanderbilt, kind of in line with our top story, kind of changing. Don't know that there's going to be a path, unfortunately, for them to get in. But that's one interesting subplot. And you mentioned Ole Miss, too. I'm going to be very fascinated tonight, David. I do think they will get penalized a little bit. But, man, if they had lost to Mississippi State and then this Lane Kiffin business kind of played out the way it did, I think we're looking at a real scenario where they're out of the playoff, unfortunately, for Ole Miss fans tonight. So it's good that they took care of business during the Egg Bowl, I suppose. And they're only going to get dinged a spot as opposed to getting eliminated entirely.
Yeah, but I think it really could make the difference between them potentially having a home playoff game in the Grove and potentially traveling on the road, which is obviously huge. I mean, we saw the advantage last year, particularly, when SMU made the trip up to Penn State, when Indiana made the short trip up to South Bend to take on the Fighting Irish. Playing at home matters, and playing in environments like that do. If that Ole Miss team potentially goes from playing in a northern stadium where it's cold, there's a lot of plan to play, right? So we will see what the committee thinks of the Rebels tonight. I was glad to hear John's perspective as well on that Notre Dame versus Miami debate. We've seen that play out on X and Twitter. The ACC's official account has even got involved in it. So we will see how the Fighting Irish and the Hurricanes are viewed. But as the resident Notre Dame fan of the show, I believe that they are one of the 12 best teams left. And I think if they get in, have a real case to be one of the favorites to win the national championship.
That's going to be the interesting thing, right? Because, I mean, I don't know how likely it is, but there are some scenarios where if you're a Notre Dame fan, obviously, and you are, that if a few teams win or a few teams lose this weekend, you're going to be a little more, nervous. But I 100% agree with what you just said. And it pains me as the Michigan guy to say this. But, yeah, that is one of the best 12 teams without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, they're playing some of their best football. Make it what you will of the schedule, the very last couple weeks, but they're winning games at a crazy clip and they're playing great ball. If I was an opposing coach, I would want Notre Dame left out. I wouldn't necessarily be lining up to go play those guys coming down the stretch.
Yeah, if you're a Notre Dame fan this weekend, you have a big foam finger in the air for Georgia, and you have a big foam finger in the air for Texas Tech as well to eliminate BYU and potentially keep a 3-loss Alabama team either out of the playoff or behind you. So is there a way that Notre Dame could potentially get a home game? No, but I'll just settle for being in the field. And if Notre Dame had to go on the road and say play an Oklahoma or an Ole Miss, I would feel really confident about their chances of advancing to the quarterfinals.
Absolutely. And if nothing else, yeah, we're in store for some electricity. Those two matchups in particular would be very entertaining, which, some of the others in the first round, maybe not going to be as much, but we'll break that down on tomorrow's show. And then obviously the rankings officially and the bracket will be set over the course of the weekend. We'll have a full update coming into next week's show. But for now, up against the break, when we come back, we'll still talk college, but we'll shift gears just a little bit. We'll talk college hoops. We'll give you all the matchups and how to watch them for this ACC SEC Men's Challenge that gets underway tonight. The ladies also begin their own version of the ACC SEC Challenge tomorrow. And we'll also tell you about a big injury for a game that is a pretty good-sized top 25 showdown outside of SEC play tonight. All that and more as we close hour number 1 on Main Street Sports Today, presented by our friends at TOA of Columbia.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Nashville's Nutcracker, presented by Nashville Ballet, returns to TPAC November 29th through December 28th. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and a land of sweets. Tickets on sale at NashvilleBallet.com.
Rocking and rolling right up to the top of the 3 o'clock hour here on Main Street Sports Today, where we're presented each and every single afternoon by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely saying hello. Our good friend David Wilson joining us. One and only visit for David Wilson this week. As we touched on at the top of the show, David's set to venture down Chattanooga way. Going to take in all the Blue Cross Bowl action at the TSSAA State Football Championships. And that reminds us that in the final segment today, a little twist on Top 5 Tuesday, but we're going to rank all 9 of the Blue Cross Bowl matchups. Kind of a remixed version, if you will, of Top 5 Tuesday. We're one game shy of having the full 10 that would have let us do the draft, but we'll rank them and we'll have fun with it. So look forward to that in our final segment of the afternoon. David, we touched on it a minute ago. Blake Lovell joined us on the program yesterday. We talked a lot of college basketball. We talked a boatload of matchups that are set to take place at the SEC ACC Challenge. Well, time is upon us, and we got a monster slate tonight beginning right out of the gate at 6 o'clock when number 13 Tennessee is at Syracuse. We mentioned in the rundown that's on ESPN2. But also tonight you got Texas A&M at Pitt, Virginia Tech at South Carolina, Oklahoma and Wake Forest. The big showdown, perhaps the main event, dare I say, tonight, comes your way at 6:30 on ESPN when Florida travels to Duke. That's number 15 Florida, number 4 Duke. You also got Mizzou at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's in the ACC. I want to remind everybody that in the basketball ranks, David. I know we just had a football discussion where they're not a full-fledged participant, but I digress. Miami and Ole Miss, Georgia at Florida State, and then North Carolina at Kentucky is kind of your nightcap tonight. On day one, all of these teams in action. These are nothing but resume boosters, and as a fan, these are just kind of salivating matchups in non-conference play between 2 of the best leagues in the entire country.
Yeah, absolutely. You get 2 blue blood programs, I guess, in the nightcap between North Carolina and Kentucky. Obviously, that's a matchup that will draw a lot of eyes. And then you mentioned, the headliner per se, with the defending national champion Florida Gators and head coach Todd Golden making the trip to Cameron Indoor to take on the Duke Blue Devils and John Shire. Some really good matchups tonight. You're going to learn a lot about your team, particularly in the case with Tennessee going up north to take on a really good Syracuse team that has some talent. So I'm really excited about the slate. Wish I could watch it. Like I said, I'll be on the sidelines this evening for some high school basketball, but I'll have the phone tuned in not only to the college football rankings at 6 o'clock, but some of these basketball games as well. And, I love, particularly with Florida and Todd Golden, the challenge that he has given his team in non-conference schedule. They played a lot of really good teams in a lot of different environments, and so it prepares you for conference play. And I think the SEC, once again, is going to be a juggernaut. You have several teams in the SEC that are ranked, including Vanderbilt. They play their ACC SEC Challenge tomorrow at Memorial Gymnasium against SMU. So another challenge for the Commodores, fresh off their win down in Atlantis in the Bahamas for their Thanksgiving tournament. So a lot of good basketball to be played over the next couple days.
Absolutely. Headliner tomorrow, perhaps, Louisville and Arkansas. That gets underway at 6:15 on ESPN. And David just mentioned SMU at Vanderbilt tomorrow. Should be a fun showdown. Vanderbilt is number 10 in KenPom. They're your highest rated team in KenPom. But right behind them, you got Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama. Florida sitting there at 16, and you got Auburn just on the cusp of the top 20. There we go, at 22. So a lot of really good teams playing a lot of other really good teams in men's action tonight. That's on the men's side of things. The ladies will get underway tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, and similar format. The best are going to play the best, and we got some juicy matchups for a couple of those, as Vanderbilt will also be at home tomorrow in a 4 p.m. showdown when they host Virginia. NC State will be at number 9 Oklahoma tomorrow night at 6:15. Tennessee, it is an ACC opponent, but interesting setup, right, David? You got to go to Stanford for the ACC. They drew the short. I don't know if that's a good trip or a bad trip. I'm not having to go out and play and be focused and locked in. But if I was a fan, I wouldn't mind a trip to Palo Alto these days, especially when we look outside and how gross it is here right now. But Tennessee will be at Stanford tomorrow night at 8:15.
Yeah, they're already on that side of the country. They just got done facing UCLA, I believe, on Sunday out in LA. So Tennessee's staying on the west coast of the trip against the Cardinal there on ESPN2. A lot of good matchups on the women's side as well. I guess tomorrow my eyeballs immediately draw to NC State and Coach Westmore taking on a really good Oklahoma team on ESPN2. Obviously, you mentioned Vanderbilt, who's undefeated on the year with Michaela Blakes leading the charge as the Commodores host Virginia. And then when you transition to Thursday, anytime South Carolina plays, my eyes immediately watch. They take on the Louisville Cardinal and former Clarksville standout Amari Berry. Notre Dame versus Ole Miss and Coach Yo will be a great matchup as well. North Carolina and Texas will be good as well. Then obviously Duke and LSU. I guess Kim Mulkey is always a must-see as well. So a lot of really good matchups on the women's side as well. A lot of good teams in the SEC and the ACC, obviously on the women's side as well.
Yeah, you mentioned it a moment ago, right? LSU at Duke. I know Duke's unranked, but a primetime showdown, a big-time game. Be ready for Kim Mulkey outfit watch. She will have something popping. If you don't watch the game, watch the socials, because she will dress to impress even more than usual, I feel like, when the lights are shining bright tomorrow night. Or excuse me, on Thursday night. Real quick, Dave, before we close the first hour, we talked all these big matchups. We got another huge top 25 matchup tonight. Kansas and UConn. Feels like UConn is playing just anybody and everybody this season. And got a big matchup. Kansas may be on the low end of some of the teams that the Huskies have already faced. But UConn catches a big break, perhaps. Kansas freshman Darren Peterson, one of the top 5, if not top 2 or top 3 projected NBA draft picks. Freshman phenom. He's going to be out with a lingering hamstring issue. He's already been out 6 games. They thought maybe they would have him worked back in for this showdown tonight. But Peterson, who's averaging close to 22 a game, about 3 assists a game, he's been shut down for a while, and they were hoping to maybe get him back, but they're going to be without him yet again versus the Huskies this evening.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's going to be in contention to be the number overall pick and definitely a lottery pick for the NBA draft this upcoming year. So this is a loss, obviously, for Bill Self and the Jayhawks. But you mentioned they've missed him over the last 6 games, and so they'll have to find a way, obviously, against a Danny Hurley coach team or Bobby Hurley, to play well. UConn's a really good team. They'll guard and they'll defend. So it'll be a challenge for Kansas tonight without one of their top scorers.
Yeah, and then they've already played UConn, that is, BYU, Arizona, and Illinois, and then tonight they get to add Kansas to the mix. KenPom showing a 1-point game. Should be fun. So I don't know what the official Vegas line is, but they'll be good to tune into tonight, in addition to all those SEC, ACC games that we told you about. In addition to all of that, we got some MTSU business to catch up, an overdue visit with our good friend, the Blue Raider voice, Chip Walters, our pal in Murfreesboro, will stop by here on the other side of this timeout. He will update us on all things from the campus right there in the heart of Murfreesboro. When we come back, it'll be Chip. It'll be hour number 2. David and I will rejoin you right after this with all the rest of Main Street Sports Today coming your way right after this, here presented by TOA of Columbia.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back, gang. Hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance, is underway. And on a Tuesday, hour number 2, been a while, but what do you say we kind of rekindle some old fun here as we welcome in our good friend from Murfreesboro, the pride of the dimple, as we like to say. It's been a while, but welcome back to the Blue Raider Voice, Chip Walters. Good afternoon, partner.
How you doing? How you doing?
We are great, and probably not as great as you because everything's kind of coming up. Blue Raiders, everything's kind of coming up Chip these days, it feels like, partner.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's been had a good weekend, and if you extend the weekend into Monday, had a good Monday night at Murphy Center, but it's been busy, that's for sure. I put a post on Facebook that probably since I'm trying to think if we had talked. The last time I talked to you guys, I was on the bus to Evansville, and because that was we played that on a Wednesday night. Blue Raiders won on the road at Evansville. The following Tuesday I was on airplanes going to Michigan to take on the Wolverines. Then last Wednesday was a travel day back from the Cayman Islands, but my November travel added it all up. Turned out to be between football and basketball, 7,242 miles, 9 airports, 7 airplanes, 7 buses, 2 SUVs, 4 hotels, only 6 hotel nights, which was surprising. Had feet on the ground in 8 different states and 1 British territory. And through all of that during the month of November, 7 basketball games and 4 football games. So there you go.
That is quite a travel log, partner. My 2 immediate questions is, your hotel and, travel balances, points wise, we've got to be looking, potentially kind of nice, I would imagine.
No, I mean, to some degree, yeah. And, but fortunately football travels by charter. And so, no points on those. And also we had a charter flight back from Michigan. But the good part about that was we played a Wednesday night game at Michigan, and I was in my house before midnight that night. after the game. So, which that was really really nice, and we were very fortunate to have that. But most recent, like I mentioned, got a win on the road at Evansville. The men then traveled to Michigan, who is now number one in the country. Was down 6 at the half and really hung with them for 30 about 25 to 30 minutes before their length and size just kind of flex their muscle. But and you don't feel nearly as bad about that after seeing what they did to destroying Auburn and Gonzaga over the weekend in the Players Era tournament. But then in the Cayman Islands, beat Murray State, lost close games to George Washington and McNeese, and right now after a 15-point win at home over UAB last night, Middle sits 5-3, and their 3 losses are all to quad 1 teams in the net. So, and after last night's win, Middle jumped 17 points or 17 spots in the net from 125 to 108. So you're at 108, you're easily within the top third of all teams in college basketball.
And that's kind of the name of the game, right, Chip?
Yeah,
is win the games you can, and then if you're going to lose to some quality teams. One other final travel question, Chip. It was awful convenient that you got to go to the Grand Cayman Islands, and you don't have to tell me the dollar amount, but I know you made some deposits into those famous or wire transfers into those famous Grand Cayman Islands bank accounts, right?
That's where you got it all stashed, and in those the secret accounts there in the Caymans. And I hate that you've spilled the secret on that now, but the kitty is out of the bag. But,
it's been in so many shows and so many movies, only perhaps a fool would actually go and attempt to do so. But your secret is somewhat safe for me. But everybody said, Chip's down there, he's having fun, he's calling games. I said, I know what he's really up to. He's down there checking on his finances.
Well, you know it.
Well,
that's right. It was we stayed in a beautiful place there on 7 Mile Beach, and I got that Sunday morning after Middle had played football against Sam Houston at home, had an airport shuttle driver pick me up at 3:45 in the morning for a 6 a.m. flight, and there was a little flight trouble, but I was able to get it taken care of, and still got down there that day about 2:15. Played a game at 7:30 that night, and then games on Monday, Tuesday. Flew back Wednesday. Got home about midnight Wednesday night, and then turned around, and on the day after Thanksgiving on Black Friday, we had to meet at the airport at 11:30 to go to New Mexico State. So it was, the Caymans really, it had great weather, and then Lord, we come back to Ice Station Zebra that we're experiencing here today. So yeah, it was warmer there than it is here today. I'll say that.
David, are you taking notes on all this travel? These are the levels that you and I should aspire to in our careers here.
Yeah, absolutely. He's racking up the miles, and you made a good point about the hotel points and all that good stuff. So Chip's been busy, but Chip, as we kind of transition into some sports and some actual boots on the ground with some football, MTSU really closed their football season well. We talked last time we talked. They had a lot of close losses during the middle stretch of their season to end their season with back-to-back wins. I know Derek Mason has to be proud of the crew and the Brew Raiders for how they finished the year.
Well, no question about it, and you kind of wondered how it was going to go. You had an injury to Nick Vattiato, who we've talked about so much, and to watch Roman Gagliano step in and have had 3 starts. All 3 were quality starts, even in a loss at Western Kentucky in a close game that where there was a late touchdown. That was a 2-point game going into the fourth quarter, and Roman played well there, set the freshman record for a single game in passing, and then comes back and throws 3 touchdowns at New Mexico State this past weekend. And a lot of young players toward the end of the year kind of rose to the top, and he was right there amongst them. And now it comes the silly season of things that we see in college football, and already seeing, or as I like to call it, the That being said, season when with all the tweets that go out, but I think it's those things just play themselves out. Coaches and players are all dealing with that. Tomorrow's signing day, or as Derek Mason calls it, draft day, because tomorrow is when all the high school talent gets signed throughout the state and throughout the Southeast. And I think, Middle expects to have a big day. I've seen, you just see things on social media with potential commitments and things like that. So, we'll see. I know there's a press conference scheduled for 3:00 tomorrow with Coach Mason, but you're right. They're so close during the month of October, and then to get into November and finish out strong, you certainly put yourself in a position to have a good taste in your mouth going into winter workouts and things like that. And this team needed that good feeling, and so now it's on to building team 114, and team 114 will be much different than 113. And Coach talked to us on the postgame show Saturday, and just simply said, yeah, it was a nice way to finish. He goes, but we need to win in 2026, and he put it out there for himself and for the ball club.
Chip, as you mentioned, some momentum possibly for the football team, but you also mentioned, you never know who's coming, who's going, and I don't mean recruits anymore. I mean, we're talking assistant coaches in particular. But man, it just felt like finally something kind of went right for the first time, maybe in the first 2 years even. And so you hate that it came so into the season because you kind of got that taste of it. Now you're like, okay, this, give me some more, but we're right here at the end of the year.
Yeah. I mean, you'd like to say, well, man, I'd like to go back and the way this team is playing right now, you'd like to go back and see. You had an 8-point loss at Kennesaw. I'd like to, have a do-over there. Lost a 2-point game to Jacksonville State. You said, I'd like to do that again, or Missouri State, or, close road loss on the road at Delaware. Like, man, just you're a play or two away in those games of doing some good things. But, it plays out, and you're right about assistant coaches. Middle's already had. There will be, 2 new assistant coaches that we know of. The offensive line and wide receiver coaches are no longer with the program, and so there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup there. And with so many dominoes falling at it's starting at the Power Fours, it's affecting. What the American has already lost 3 head coaches already. So, the replacements there are going to have to come from somewhere. And all of these guys on every staff have connections with, other guys elsewhere. And so there could be some shuffling around, not on just middle staff, but everybody's staffs could have some shuffling going on due to new head coaches in new positions. And, you look at where are the relationships and who might hire who and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. And, the one thing I've done as I've gotten older is knowing that my worrying about it's not going to change anything. So just kind of, watch it and, see what happens, let it play out, and then go meet the new guys where they might be, whether it's players or coaches or whatever, and start working on next year.
Chip, as we kind of transition into basketball, you mentioned coming off the challenge for the men's side, obviously a big matchup this weekend against Belmont at the Murphy Center. How do you kind of preview that matchup coming up?
Well, it's interesting. Last night, Middle beat UAB by 15 at home. That was a really, really good win. Middle was down 15, and UAB came into the game. They were number 13 in the country, I think, in fast break points. They're a top 25 offensive rebounding team. And so, sometimes UAB's best offense is throw the ball up there and then go get it.
Mhm.
That's not going to be the case with Belmont. Belmont is going to be a much more free flowing, a much prettier game than what you get with Belmont, but still, or what you get with UAB, but still, a lot of the same things that got you the win last night and against last week against Murray State and the win on the road at Evansville. Rebounding and defense always travel well. Well, they work at home as well too. So you bring that, and but you're not so much worried about what Belmont's going to do to you in the paint, but they are going to shoot threes at a higher volume than UAB in particular, and they're going to try to put you in a position where you're chasing shooters and things like that. So it's going to be a totally different matchup, but that's something that over the past couple of years that has kind of been a hallmark of Nick McDevitt's teams is that, winning 22 a year ago and off to a good start this year is that they have the ability to win games in different ways and play different styles from one game to the next. And that's what it's going to take to go 1-0 this coming Sunday against a really good, very talented Belmont squad, and glad to have them at home. And you keep going through December, and you look, and every time you look at what's next, it's like, oh my gosh, here's another. I mean, you go to Evansville and get a win there, and oh by the way, now you get to play Michigan, and then you go to the Cayman Islands and you play Murray State, who has always been a thorn in the side, and you play George Washington, who at the time was the highest rated Atlantic 10 team in KenPom, and McNeese State, who we know what they've been the last few years. And then, oh, by the way, you get to come home for UAB.
Welcome back.
And then Belmont, and then you've got a game with Cumberland in there somewhere, and you also have your conference opener against Kennesaw, who has the preseason player of the year. And then right after that, after you open the Christmas presents, you get to go to Houston and take on the Cougars. And so it is a very, very challenging schedule that the Blue Raiders have. But this is a really, really fun team to watch. And Torrey Alston, sophomore, and he was 17-9 last night, had a double-double against Murray State last week. And he had 3 dunks last night, and all of them were Sports Center highlight type things. So, they're worth the ticket price. And coming up, like I said, on Sunday, you're going to have a double header at Murphy Center. You got 4 in-state teams that'll be really fun. It's going to be the women against Memphis, and then the men against Belmont. All starts at 1:00. 1 ticket gets you in, and it'll be a fun afternoon.
Chip, you mentioned that schedule, and obviously it's a murderer's row. And I wanted to ask you about the CUSA kind of one-off there. We can maybe hold that for later, but I just real quickly, humor me. Is every school just playing a one game and that's it, or is some school getting 1 or 2 in there?
Well, a little bit of a story behind this. They had scheduled everybody to play a conference game on the 29th, and to kind of get on December 29th, but Middle had the opportunity to go to Houston and in a bye game situation. And so the Blue Raider coaching staff got with Kennesaw's staff and said, hey, we've got this opportunity. How about, do you all have a date that would work? And it came out that the 16th worked out well. So Middle and Kennesaw will be the first conference game, by a matter of about 10 days before everybody else. And then it gets underway after that. And the conference schedule this year is kind of wacky. And that's probably another story for another day.
We like that on this show.
Yeah. But it is there. I know Middle this year has got one stretch where they have to play 4 straight on the road. So it's kind of, the addition of Delaware and Missouri State have mucked up the conference schedule to where it was kind of, when you had 12 teams, it was kind of nice because you could play. You played the other 11, and it all worked out pretty nicely because one of those teams was your travel partner. Well, now there's really no travel partners, and you play games hither and yon, and so we'll kind of break it down a little bit once I get my head wrapped around it a little more.
So you kind of answer my question there a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a pure one-off game, kind of
Yeah.
well, we need to come up with a fancy, that's the CUSA opening
lid lifter.
showcase. Yeah,
The lid
exactly.
lifter. That's right.
I love that. You touched on it loosely, but you mentioned the ladies a minute ago. What else can you tell us about our Blue Raider women?
Well, they have their youth has kind of showed up a little bit the last couple of games. This was not the best year for them to probably play Tennessee at home. And Tennessee came in after a couple of close games and felt like they needed to prove a point. And they jumped out and dominated the game against Middle Tennessee. Forced turnovers, jumped out to a 16-0 lead, and had an 85-41 win in Murfreesboro. And then Middle went to down to Destin, played in an event there, beat Providence in a really good defensive effort, and then just had a hard time getting anything going against Mississippi State in the finals of that event. But the thing is about having a young team, the best part of it is they get older, and but right now they are there's a lack of consistency that is just part of the DNA of being young.
Yeah.
And learning and making freshman mistakes and trying to find some consistency, and that's what they're looking for, and they'll start to find that as they move through this tough non-conference schedule. We mentioned they've got Memphis coming in, and they've also got Auburn coming in. So and then a trip to Wichita State, and a trip to Southern Indiana. So that's all in their future in the non-conference. And Rick Insell for years it's been kind of an anybody, anytime, anywhere kind of deal, and that has not changed, even though they've got a young group, and understanding that there's no sympathy coming his way because they're young, because they have caused other coaches to have heartburn all across the country, and now they're just going through this cycle where they're very young, had to replace all 5 starters, and you're seeing kids grow up right in front of your eyes, and that's going to continue to happen, and they're going to be fine. It's just a team that is a work in progress on kind of a nightly basis, and playing Belmont on Wednesday night is going to be no cakewalk, because again, Belmont's women play very similar to the men in that they move the ball extremely well. They're going to force you to chase shooters, and when you make a mistake, it's like a pitcher making a mistake with a great hitter. They're going to take advantage of it, and but it's at home, and they'll have a shot at home, and they're preparing and going through what they need to get ready for it.
It reminds me, Chip, Giles County football coach David O'Connor said this during some of his youthful teams. He said, "Get your licks in now." And not saying that's the entire picture for the Lady Raiders, but it almost seems like, if you're going to get us, go ahead and get some shots in now, because we'll be coming in maybe not even maybe later this year, but also certainly in the next years to come.
Yeah, you're right. And you can see, some of the fun stuff that could come ahead. In particular, you talk about a Blair Bogus out of Wayne County.
She's been dominating, it seems like.
Well,
off to a great start.
And she was the only freshman in the country to have double doubles in her first 2 college games. Macy Pfeiffer, who was the Miss Basketball in the state of Mississippi last year, there's a huge. She's got a high ceiling and is already playing well. The development of the point guard from China, she's kind of wide open sometimes, and makes if she makes a mistake, it's going to typically be an aggressive mistake. But she's learning how to play within herself and learning the American college game. And Savannah Davis, who set the state single game record for 3-pointers made, she has lifted herself up to be a leader on this team as a sophomore. So they're coming along, and you're right. Get your licks in now, because this is a very talented group that's going to have a lot of success in the future.
David, anything else?
No, he covered it all. Appreciate Chip for joining us as always.
Appreciate it. Good.
Chip, you the man, and glad to have you back. Did you get to eat any turkey? Did you get to celebrate Thanksgiving properly?
I did. I went family get together over in Williamson County on last Thursday, and got to see everybody and enjoy that, and then come home, wash clothes, and pack up and headed out to New Mexico. So, but got to enjoy it.
You went from the Cayman Islands to the land of enchantment in a short time period. And I love
right.
that. And real quick, because Mo sent us a picture, he went back to back with the cheese and pineapple. I didn't get a report on the casserole from this year, but he sent a picture that looked pretty good for 2 years in a row. So thank you for the tip.
That's right. Well, and where I went, there was no cheese and pineapple casserole, but there was cranberry salad, and which it's a cranberry jello type deal. And,
writing this down as we speak.
And my cousin's strawberry cake, which top notch.
I love that. I went, the in-laws are all from Ohio, and I blew people's minds with Sundrop cake this year. They were not aware of such a thing.
That is a Giles County standard right there.
They were not aware such things in life existed. So, that was my addition this year. But, Chip, glad to see you back. Good to have you on the show, and we will see you next Tuesday, partner.
All right. See you, boys.
Thank you very much. Once again, our good friend Chip Walters, the Blue Raider voice, back from his travels. David, my mind was just trying to, I was trying to do the world map, in my head as he was rattling off all those places and dates and ventures. And I still don't have a full grasp of everything, but let's just safe to say that he's probably a little jet lagged and a little tired. So it's good to catch up with him, even though he's, trying to probably get some recovery time here.
Yeah, Chip has logged his frequent flyer miles for the year, probably over the last couple weeks. So he's probably happy to be off the airplanes for a little bit. But appreciate his insight as always. Like, we got some really good matchups down in the borough this week. Anytime Belmont and MTSU can get together in basketball, whether it's on the women's or men's side, that's going to be exciting as well. And obviously Memphis making the trip across state to take on the Lady Blue Raiders on Sunday. It will be a good matchup down at the Glass House.
Absolutely. And the big matchups keep it coming for the Blue Raiders. So thanks to Chip once again for joining us, and good to see him back on our Tuesday rotation there. David and I are going to take a quick time out. When we come back, time to dip into the grab bag. We got some news and nuggets from across the sports landscape. You're not going to want to miss it. And then at the end of our show, we'll close it with a little different version of Top 5 Tuesday, but we're going to rank all of our Blue Cross Bowl matchups, tell you which ones we're most excited about as we preview all the action this weekend coming up in Chattanooga. So a lot to come here in the final half hour, but you're watching Main Street Sports Today, and we're presented, as always, by TOA of Columbia.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Nashville's Nutcracker, presented by Nashville Ballet, returns to TPAC November 29th through December 28th. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets on sale at NashvilleBallet.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today, presented each and every single afternoon by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Rolling right along. We just had a great conversation with our good friend Chip Walters, the MTSU Blue Raider voice. In hour number 1, John Bryce of Football Scoop dropped by to update us on all things college football. And the dust is not still fully settled with Lane Kiffin and LSU. John kind of touched on this, David, but you pointed it out off air a minute ago, or at least we received information. Sounds like the staff situation, which is really kind of the compelling deal of the fallout of this Lane Kiffin situation. Sounds like Charlie Weiss Jr. is still going to be involved with Ole Miss going forward in terms of their playoff run, which we, after talking to John, sounds like they will be fully in the playoff field this year.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin made an announcement, I believe this afternoon, said that he spoke personally with the College Football Playoff Committee to reiterate that Charlie Weiss will be a part of the offensive play calling for, I assume, that will be their first round playoff game. I don't see them automatically, obviously, getting a bye to the quarterfinals. So their first round playoff game, whether it be at home or on the road, which is a big deal, right? To have that continuity on the offensive side of the football with Trinidad Chambliss at the quarterback position, have the play caller that's been in your ear the entire year on the sidelines helps. So we'll see what the committee does tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time with the rankings. Obviously, these are not the finalized rankings. They will come out on Sunday, but it is a nice boost in the cap for Ole Miss to say that they have their offensive coordinator, but I still feel like they will get penalized, obviously, for not having Lane Kiffin on the sidelines, not having your head coach and having to elevate your defensive coordinator to a head coaching position in a spot where he has to do both for the first time all year in a playoff setting. That's really hard to ask and not to oversee.
You know, and it's an interesting situation, right? Because the College Football Playoff Committee, their job is presumably to get the best 12 teams in. But there's a little bit of an element of you want to give good matchups. Whether just human nature, I think maybe kind of compels you. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they can objectively totally look at that. But I don't know that I could do that. And if you're looking at Ole Miss, and if the staff had been kind of completely ransacked, not saying you can leave them out, but man, it is interesting that you might be faced with, well, this Ole Miss team, how good are they suddenly if they don't have their coach? I'm fascinated by how you maybe at that point rank them / put the matchups together. Because if we were talking about, that hostage situation that Lane Kiffin was kind of proposing, where he was going to take virtually the entire staff with him, we could be talking about a real toothless Ole Miss team. But at least now it does seem like they got a little bit more than a pea shooter kind of at their disposal here. They got a little bit more bullets to fire. And I still don't think they got the goods probably to win it all. I don't know if they had the goods to win it all, even with Kiffin at the helm, but having Weiss back certainly at least gives you a little bit of a puncher's chance, you would think, going into that first round matchup, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think the College Football Playoffs Committee job is to put the teams in there that can win it all, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think they necessarily need to play favor to a group of 5 team. No offense to Tulane or to James Madison, but I believe that the job is to put teams in that can win the whole thing, if that makes sense. And so that's where I go back to, I guess I'm a homer, but you can't tell me and look me in the face that Notre Dame is not one of the best 12 teams in the field, And so I think Vanderbilt has a case as well. You can't look me in the face that Vanderbilt right now isn't playing like a top 12 team in college football. And I guess that's the hard part of it, right? We just kind of have a cluster right there of 1 to 2 lost teams that it's hard. Like there's SEC bias, there's ACC bias. We're all biased in some form or fashion. So, but the committee, I mean, it's danged if you do, danged if you don't. You know, nobody's ever going to be happy. We were arguing over 4 teams. Now we're still arguing over 12. If they move it to 16, we'll still be arguing. There's somebody will always feel neglected or left out. And so I understand Miami's case. We're a 10-2 team that beat Notre Dame head to head, but you also had the opportunity. You're not even playing in your ACC championship game because you lost 2 games to SMU and to Louisville that you probably shouldn't have lost. So we'll see. Everybody has a case. Everybody's doing some politicking. Vanderbilt's doing their politicking. So we'll see what happens when I guess the dust gets settled on Sunday.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting that you mentioned the ACC, a couple different things. Number one, I don't know about you, David, but I am here for maybe with you with Notre Dame and Vanderbilt, kind of on the fringe. I'm here for the chaos, though. Give me Duke beating Virginia, because I think if Duke beats Virginia, I think there is a real legit shot, number one, that the ACC champ will not be included. And that opens the door for, someone like a James Madison to maybe get a second bid. May also potentially damage some teams like a Notre Dame, perhaps a Vanderbilt, certainly Miami or Texas, who's really, really down there on the fringe. But I'm here for the chaos just because the ACC has been so bizarre and so crazy all year long anyway. The 2 teams that we thought were going to be the best were Florida State and Clemson, and they end up playing each other on the CW network practically at 11 a.m. earlier this year. That's how bad those teams were. So give me complete and utter chaos now that we're here, and give me Duke and just see what I'd like to see the committee have to explain their decision, whatever it is, if Duke at least puts them in a spot to have to include a team with as many losses as Duke has. I just want to have that clear-cut case study kind of example at our disposal if it happens that way.
I would be interested if they would leave out the ACC champion and put Miami in as the large bid from the ACC and neglect that.
Yeah.
I think the ACC, if they could do it over again, would probably change their tiebreaker scenario and give Miami the opportunity to play in Charlotte this weekend for the ACC championship. But we'll see. Like I said, there's so much to be played. I like that they do the rankings because they give us and people like us the opportunity to have these talking points. But it really doesn't matter until it's all settled on the football field after Saturday and this weekend and Friday for some places. Like, the results on the field will give us the body to talk about. Like if Alabama loses to Georgia, as John mentioned, by potentially double digits and suffers their 3rd loss, we're looking and talking about Alabama differently than we did last week. So there's a lot to be said moving forward.
Absolutely. And we don't have enough time to really even get in the weeds on this, but you mentioned tiebreakers. Meant to mention this with Mo on the show yesterday. But the craziest of all, and who knows, in a wild situation with Duke maybe winning, maybe that opens the door for one of these teams. But Boise State and UNLV are going to meet. It was announced Sunday in the Mountain West Championship. They had a 4-way tie, David, and their tiebreaker was basically, the computers deciding. And, I'm a big nerd, so I like the fact that the computers kind of get involved. But you got a 4-way tie, and you got all kinds of craziness. Everybody's kind of on pins and needles, just huddling around for a printout from the computer on Sunday to see who the 2 championship teams were going to be. And then we finally get Boise State and UNLV.
Shout out to Carl Edmondson Jr., one of our favorite photographers here in our Main Street Sports Today family. His son plays for the Running Rebels of UNLV. So Carl Edmondson is he's making the trip out to Nevada this weekend for the Mountain West Championship. So we relieved him of his shooting duties of the high school football state championships. Obviously, he's going to go be a dad and root for UNLV in the Mountain West Championship. So good luck to Carl's son this weekend for UNLV as they take on, as you mentioned, Boise State.
Yeah, absolutely. I was unaware of the connection, but now, I don't really need much extra juice to root for UNLV. I'm kind of partial to the guys out there in Vegas and Dan Mullen in the playoff, or at least Frisky. I'd be okay with that. So something to keep our eyes on. A couple of other random college football stories. This is one that jumped off the page to me, David, and it is kind of a wild and wacky story. But while we're talking ACC football, this is a real headline. But Tusi of TikTok, rap fame, has announced his decision. I love this, that, like he's a top 100 recruit, basically. He's announced his decision. The multi-gold and platinum selling artist, who goes by the real name Najor Granger, told fans that he's fulfilling his childhood dream of playing college football. And he announced he ain't going, to, North Carolina, Western Carolina. He's not going to UT Chat. No disrespect to the Mocs. He's going to Syracuse. Tusi said he's going to line up and play wide receiver for the Orange next season. Second time we mentioned them on this show today, David. But the 25-year-old announces that he's going to pursue his college football career at wideout. I was unaware that Tusi had game like that.
You know what? I watched Syracuse take on Notre Dame a couple weeks ago, and I saw them fall behind very quickly. I believe 21-0 before Notre Dame's offense touched the football. So Fran Brown needs some wide receivers on the outside. So I wish him the best of luck. Maybe he can provide some juice to that wide receiving room for the Big Orange.
As soon as you started saying that, I had a feeling that's where you were going to go. And, I wonder if Tusi's watching the game and he's like, I can play receiver for these
I'm better
guys.
than those guys.
Yeah, I don't know if that had any, factor into his decision making or not, but we shall see. Tusi getting ready to line up for the Orange next season. Already has a graphic and everything out on social, so props to Tusi from North Carolina. And I want to say he played DB. Trying to scan through this once again. I read this earlier. No, he was listed. Okay, he was listed at receiver the whole time. On 3, actually, had a profile for him back in the day. 5'9", 165-pound wide receiver. A little on the smaller end, but maybe a chance to do a little come up here. So keep your eyes peeled for the sidelines next season, and it could be fun to see him sign tomorrow on signing day, as we've mentioned. Speaking of local connections. Meant to mention this on the show yesterday, and I hope producer Mark can grab the vid if we can find it. But David, did you see Colorado State football by any chance? And there's a local tie to this. Are you aware of?
I did not see it, but I heard about Mr. Kennard from Pearl Cone High School. So okay. I feel like you might share.
Yeah. We might share. We're going to revisit in just a second if we can get producer Mark to get the vid, because we got to get some opinion, because I certainly have a strong one. And it's not just because Javion Kennard went to Pearl Cone, but more on that in just a second. But while we're talking, okay, perfect segue here, because it's kind of a disciplinary type situation. But speaking of discipline, David, did you watch any Monday Night Football last night?
I did. Drake May led me to a big win in the first round of my fantasy football playoffs. So, unfortunately, he's on bye this week, and so is Christian McCaffrey. So, my team name, McCaffrican American, will be a little shorthanded this week for the second round of the playoffs. We do 2 weeks at a time. So, hoping for maybe some waiver wire or some bench guys to step up for me. But we're in the Final Four, and so we're trying to win our fantasy league.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers, because that's 2 key losses, 2 key cogs of your squad there. So best of luck. And
I did make sure to pick up the Browns defense though, because Myles Garrett against J.C. Latham might pose a problem for the two-tone blue.
Yeah. More on that later in the week, because that is not a pretty picture that you just painted right there. Kudos to you, though, for the wisdom of thinking ahead. Reason I asked about Monday Night Football, and the reason we talked about disciplinary issues, once upon a time, the Titans thought, maybe we don't take Cam Ward, maybe we take the next best player. Well, that next best player, according to a lot of folks, was who the Giants took with their first-round pick, former Penn State defensive end Abdul Carter. A lot of folks maybe said he was the best overall player, defensive end / linebacker, I should say. Turns out, though, Abdul, he's had some issues, shall we say, on the field. At times has looked great, maybe lived up to his potential. At times has kind of been, on the defensive side of the ball. But in terms of off the field, he's ran into some stuff, including a situation where the second time now in the last 3 games, the rookie has had to be disciplined, including a situation last night where he was benched at the start of the game, sitting out the first 2 drives, both of which ended in points for the Patriots. One of them was a crazy punt return, I believe that I read on their first touchdown of the night. But Giants interim coach Mike Kafka described the benching as a team decision, or a coach decision rather, saying it was, quote, my decision. And this article I'm reading from ESPN says he iterated that repeatedly. So Carter sat out both drives. He was asked after the game why he was disciplined, and he said, blank happens. I'm not going to go into details, but blank happens. So whatever blank was, as bad as the Giants are, as promising as Abdul Carter is, we see one of the top stars in last year's draft. Not calling it a bust situation, but man, he has not kind of truly lived up to the hype on a defense that had the tools to maybe be really good this year, David.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I believe he was sat for the second time for tardiness. And so, I mean, that's the bare minimum, Wade, even for guys in our business. The least that you could do is show up and be on time, right? That's the bare minimum of the effort that is asked. So, Abdul, there are vets in his locker room, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, that need to get a hold of him and teach him kind of the standard of the way that we do or they do things in the NFL. Obviously, this is a guy, who has not had the production, at least with the sack total, that a top 5 pick would warrant. So hopefully he can get it together for the Giants. Obviously, it's a dumpster fire up there in New York, obviously, with Brian Daboll getting fired earlier this season. So hopefully they can figure things out up there in New York. But it's a struggle for sure. They were behind 17-0 before he got in the game last night.
Yeah, and look, as we mentioned here in the rundown, they lose that game 33-15. Drake May, he was your front runner for MVP a couple weeks ago. As I do see the video producer Mark, we're going to spin that here in just 1 second. But May, he had kind of maybe taken a small step back to Matt Stafford in that MVP race last week, but now all of a sudden he's back on because Stafford had a little bit of a stinker in their loss to the Panthers. But Drake May, 24 of 31 passing, 282 yards, and 2 touchdowns. All right, we mentioned this earlier, and this was not on the run of show, so this was my boo-boo for not having it prepared to start with, but it made me think. We were talking about Mountain West football with David earlier, and Carl and his son and UNLV and all the great things they might do this weekend if they can win that MWC championship. But this is a play in the game versus Boise State earlier this year, or excuse me, last weekend, I should say. Javion Kennard, former Pearl Cone standout. This is his second rushing touchdown of the season. And we're just going to play this clip first and then kind of discuss what happens after. Producer Mark, take it away. So Kennard basically pops, I forget the official distance, but as we replay it here, he's off to the races. It's like an 89-yard touchdown. So super long rushing touchdown, his second of the season. He's called for taunting. And I don't know there's the kind of primetime step a little bit at like the 15-yard line, David, but do you see taunt? And again, I know we got a little Pearl Cone rose-colored glasses going on here, but I don't know if I see any taunting right here, partner.
I'll say that I've seen worse for sure. So, time and score 34-7 at the time was he strolls into the end zone. So they probably could have laid off the 15 and unsportsmanlike on for there for sure. I've seen worse, that's for sure.
I've seen worse, and Kennard and Pearl Cone have probably been flagged for worse over the years.
They probably have too.
As often as they can run up the score on some teams and rub it in their face. But yeah, you're right. 34-7. Was it maybe the smartest move on his part to even put it in the realm of possibility? Nah, maybe not. But man, ain't no way in the world I'm calling a taunting penalty. And that was the end of the clip. I watched the entire clip after. There's no extra celebration. So it was purely for the little slowdown on the kind of the primetime waltz into the end zone there, the Deion Sanders celebration. So I wanted to play that clip at some point in the show. And that's tough, David.
Yeah, really quickly, Wade, before we go to the commercial break, we talked with John Bryce from FootballScoop.com about Kalani Sitake and BYU and potentially making the move to Penn State. This is coming from ESPN's Chris Vanini. BYU coach Kalani Sitake is expected to remain with the Cougars after receiving strong interest from Penn State. This is from The Athletic, excuse me. BYU is expected to commit more resources to Sitake and the college football program, which plays for the Big 12 title and the college football playoff berth on Saturday. ESPN reported this first. So where Penn State goes from here, that's a really big question because they whiffed yet again. So we will see who ends up being in State College for their head coaching job. But with signing day coming over the next couple of days, it's not good for the Nittany Lions right now.
No, and none of that is good. And you and John both kind of touched on it earlier. You fired James Franklin. It felt like a little bit of an emotional, quick firing. Maybe it'd have been bubbling, but man, it felt like you pulled the rug pretty quick there. And presumably you pull the rug quick so you can be first to market and maybe grab you a nice, fancy, shiny head football coach. And then, as you just said, tomorrow is signing day, and that's the real day now that everybody's trying to highly covet and get somebody in place for. And here we sit, no one at this moment to Penn State. So stay tuned there. Speaking of stay tuned, quick commercial break, our final commercial break. When we come back, we got 9 TSSAA high school football state championships to hand out this weekend. It's a remix in honor of Tusi, I suppose. We will rank our favorite games as we get set for the Blue Cross Bowl. David and I will give you matchups 1 through 9 in terms of our fandom, or in terms of our rooting interest, I guess, coming up on the other side of this timeout here on Main Street Sports Today.
The winning just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs. Winning just got closer.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier Whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it, but it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
Final segment here on a good-looking Tuesday. It's Top 5 Tuesday. Our show is presented each and every single afternoon by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely here, David Wilson there. Our producer is the one and only Mark Rogers. It is Top 5 Tuesday, and that reminds us, folks, each and every single Tuesday, our final segment is brought to you by our friends at the Columbia Power and Water System. Are you tired of buffering and slow internet speeds? Well, upgrade your life with CPWS Internet. You can get lightning fast internet with speeds up to an incredible 1 gig where you can stream, game, and work seamlessly, all for just $70 a month. So if you're looking for local service and local support, visit cpws.com or call 931-375-7777. Tell them your friends at Main Street Sports Today were the ones that sent you. Again, a remix on our Top 5 Tuesday here. We're just going to go with a traditional, in honor of David's fantasy football semifinal appearance here, I suppose, snake draft style. And David, we got 9 games to choose from. We're going to rank our TSSAA Blue Cross Bowl games, and we do this not only to celebrate the teams, but also as a somewhat farewell to you as you get ready to make your trip down to cover some of these games over the next couple of days. First of all, safe travels. Second of all, tell everybody how they can read all of your content and our content over the next couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. So Blaine Keller and I will be on the sidelines starting on Thursday for all the Division II action. Blaine will have coverage of BG and FRA at 11 p.m. or a.m. Eastern time. I will have coverage of Nashville Christian and obviously 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis. And then Blaine will have the nightcap with Brentwood Academy and Baylor. All that can be found on Main Street's Preps, our social media accounts, and Main Street Nashville as well. I'll be back on Saturday night for Oakland and Ravenwood, which should be a doozy. You can find coverage of that on Main Street Nashville, Main Street Preps, and the Murfreesboro Post, and obviously on my X account at David M. Wilson 14. So Blaine will be there for Page on Friday night and Pearl Cone on Saturday morning. So we're looking forward to being down in Chattanooga for all that good stuff.
You guys are going to be covering things wall to wall, and we are excited to send our friends and send our viewers and listeners to Main Street Preps and all of our other various local newspapers to make sure and check out that great coverage that comes out of this special time of the year. As David mentioned, action cranks up Thursday. It gets into Friday, and then Saturday, you got 3 games each day. 11, 3, and 7 set for all 3 morning, afternoon, and evening. And we start with D2, and then we get into kind of that crisscross applesauce type deal where you got all kinds of matchups over the next couple of days. So, David, we're going to rally here for the final segment of the day. I'm going to let you have the first pick. Let's go maybe the game. No offense to the schools, no offense to the TSSAA, but maybe let's start at the bottom and work our way up. All 9 are pretty good matchups, in my opinion. So let's start at the bottom, and we're going to work our way up snake style until we give you our favorite matchup of the Blue Cross Bowl season.
Yeah, this one's hard for me. It's just because obviously they're not from our coverage area, so I don't know much about them. So I know they are the defending state champs in their classification. I do not know much though about Marion County and Huntington. I know that'll probably be a great matchup, and it'll probably be the best one of the weekend since I said it last. But since I don't know much about the teams, I'll throw that in that 9 spot for me.
I'm with you, and that was one that I was targeting. It's going to be a dandy. Both teams have had some really good seasons. Both teams have played very well in the postseason, including Huntington, who knocked off East Robertson a couple weeks ago. But somebody's got to be number 9. My number 8 selection. That's your 2A game. I'll offer a similar vibe here. South Pittsburgh and McKenzie. McKenzie's trying to cap off a return after they got denied in the semifinals last year. South Pittsburgh might cruise in this game. May not. No disrespect to the Rebels of McKenzie, but South Pittsburgh could cruise. So therefore, just because there is an element of a blowout factor, I'm going to take South Pittsburgh and McKenzie in the 1A title game on Friday. That's our number 8 selection here.
Yeah, for me, for number 7, once again, these are teams outside of our coverage area. I don't want to slight anybody that reads us. Obviously, I'm excited about those games. I think this game is going to be good as well. I think Graham Simpson is one of the most talented callers, not only in the mid-state, but in the country overall. His second appearance, obviously, in a Blue Cross Bowl, they lost to Alcoa last year. So in 3A, Gatlinburg Pittman versus Graham Simpson and Westview should be a good game, but that'll be number 7 for me.
Yep. Some talent on display, to say the least, in that one. This one, I'll dip my toes in the water. I'll go to the D2 ranks here. And we talked a lot about Jared Curtis on this game or on this show, and for good reason, because he is the big dog on campus. And therefore, no disrespect to Bo Wallace, good friend of the show and Giles County legend. He's the offensive coordinator for USJ. I don't know that USJ's got the goods to hang with Nashville Christian. So therefore, I have to take USJ and Nashville Christian here in our next slot on the pecking order.
Yeah, so I believe this is number 5 for me. This is where it gets really hard because I really love some of these matchups. I think, and this one might be a little too low for your opinion, Wade, but I'm going to do it. I really think that Baylor versus Brentwood Academy is going to be in this
almost
spot
picked
for
that
me.
one just now.
Okay.
No, I'm saying I almost picked that one. Yeah, I'm with you, brother.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go there just because, man, that Baylor team is so good with David Gabriel Georges, so they're 5 for me. Oh, and that's a really good Brentwood Academy team that hasn't lost yet, but on the rankings, that is number 5 for me.
Yep. Up next for me, we just mentioned Pearl Cone. But, man, good luck versus Alcoa. Some teams try to go up. Some teams try to go down. They all try and avoid Alcoa. Well, there's no avoiding Pearl Cone and Alcoa this year. I'd love to see Pearl Cone do it. I'll keep watching on Saturday, and we'll see what happens. But I got to take Pearl Cone and Alcoa there in that 4 slot for me.
Number 3, this is a rematch from last year. Sevier County versus Page should be a really good one Friday night from Finley Stadium. Blaine Keller on the coverage for that. It's number 3. It's just not 2 or 1 for me.
I'm with you there, and it's kind of the same thing for my last pick. FRA and BGA is going to be a dandy. BGA, man, they have looked good, and it's been fun to watch them turn things around over the last 2 years. I will not be shocked if they take care of business in a big way. That's my number 2 selection.
Obviously, number 1 is the game I'm covering on Saturday night. Anytime Oakland and Ravenwood can get together, a battle of unbeatens in Class 6A. These two met last year on Friday night rivals in the game of the week that went to overtime, I believe, with Ravenwood sneaking out a 1-point win over Kevin Creasy's Patriots. Should be a great atmosphere. Saturday night, probably going to be cold, but a really good matchup between the Raptors and the Patriots from UTC.
Yeah, well, just bundle up and do your best, David. We look forward to reading your coverage, and we look forward to all of that next week. Thank you so much for joining us, David. Best of luck with this. All right, partner?
Yep. I will be safe. Appreciate you guys. I'll be back in the saddle tomorrow with Mo.
Sounds good. David and Mo tomorrow. It'll be Mo and Calvin on Thursday. Yours truly and Mo return on Friday. That's the schedule for the rest of the week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to a Tuesday edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. We'll see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock.